And we are live on YouTube. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 192. And we're live in 3, 2. Welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast, the podcast for men who win, with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
Hey Nathan, how's it going? I'm doing pretty awesome. How about
All
yourself?
right. I'm doing pretty awesome as well. Last week, we kind of had a squirrely episode. I'm surprised that there haven't been a bunch of clips taken out of context posted on the internet yet, but uh, I'm looking at the notes for today and I'm interested. I just see this thing that says PERPOM and I'm thinking to myself, what the heck does that mean?
PERPOM, yeah, we're gonna make sure this one's a little bit G-rated here for the community. But it's a follow-up from one of the previous episodes that we had. I think it was maybe 2 episodes ago or 3 episodes ago where we talked about systems. And we talked about how life is a system. And I had some questions come to me about that. So how do you actually create a system, or what are systems made of? And this is a formula that we use. It's called PERPOM. It's an acronym, and it's what we use for every one of the systems that we create. And here's something that I can say is that the reason why we've been able to have the success that we have as an organization and as individuals within our organization and just people in general is by creating systems. This is something that I learned at a very, very young age, where I said, okay, what is the ultimate success? Why do people have success, and why do people not have success? Well, how does the world work? And I talked about this, what is life about? It's all about systems. And if you can figure out what the systems are about, what the systems are made of, what the function of the system is, and how you measure that, then you can actually create something successful. So everything that I've done throughout my years, throughout the decades, was all about systems. So when I acquired knowledge about something, I would automatically create a system for it. And then that system could be repeatable, right? And then I could fine tune that system and see what's working in that system or not. And then change the elements of the system and perfect the system. And then you can actually sell the system, right? Or you could help someone else with the system because now it's repeatable. Now you know that, hey, look, if I do this more than once, I can actually get similar results or the same results. And now if I can show this to somebody else and they get similar results or better results, okay, now it's usable, right? And then it's actually marketable. Then you can actually create wealth around it. So this is an important concept. If you want to create wealth, it doesn't come from knowledge, it comes from creating systems around that knowledge. And so that's very important. But I wanted to break it down for people out there listening in terms of these are the most important elements, or the system to create a system. And it's called PERPOM. The P, so it's PERPOM. I know it sounds silly, but it's an acronym. But the P, the very first P, stands for purpose. And that's something that's important. What is the purpose of the system? Because every system has a purpose, and you have to find out what that is, whether it's losing weight, whether it's your business, whatever it may be, an onboarding process. You have to take a look at what the ultimate purpose is, because that purpose is what guides everything else. The E is actually for the elements, right? So what are the elements within the system? So if we're taking a look at something like losing weight, so let's take a look at losing weight, for example. What is the purpose? Well, the purpose of that system for two people could be different. For someone, losing weight could be a health reason. Another one, it could be an aesthetic reason. Maybe I just want to look better. So the purposes can be different. What are the elements within that system? The elements could be the same. So it could be eating healthier, right? Working out, more sleep, whatever that looks like. So the elements could be similar, but the purposes could be different. And here's where things come really interesting is the R is for relationships, because each element within the system relates to each other differently. So how does sleep relate to working out? Well, guess what? If you get more sleep, you're going to have a better workout, right? And guess what? If you work out, you're going to have better sleep. So there's a relationship between the different elements. And then there's the P, which is really around the process, right? So what is the process around the system? Because everything, there has to be a process. What's step one? What's step two? What's step three? right? So there has to be a process around that. If there's no process and you have random elements, it's not going to work as effectively. And then the O is for the output. What is the output of the system? Because there has to be some kind of output. Because if there's no output, then the system isn't effective. And to be able to determine that, you have to have the M, which is measurements. And so the measurements determines how well the outputs are coming out and whether you're actually achieving that purpose or not. So that in a high level nutshell is how you create a system, an effective system. So we can dig in a little bit deeper here, but I don't know if you have any questions so far there, Nathan.
Just an example from my own life. My first business was a record label, and this layout that you have is kind of what I intuitively figured out for when we were creating albums. And one of the things that this is like 18, 19 years old, I just realized, oh, writing out, this is going to be the track list. These songs go here for this reason. These songs go here for this reason. Now I need to figure out what dates we're going to go in and record which songs, and which songs it makes sense to record first, and which part of the recording process makes sense to go do first. How do we get the songs together? How do we find the background beats? How do we just actually sitting down and starting with the end in mind? The album is going to be called this, the feeling of the album, what I want people to come away from. So the end result, the purpose of the album was the first thing that I started with, starting with the end in mind, and then actually going through and plotting these things out and figuring out how each thing related to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
I figured that out at 18 years old, and it was an aha moment for me. It was like, oh, that's how you get something done. I'm 42 years old now, and I still know a lot of people who have not figured this out yet. They're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, and they still haven't figured out how to actually make things happen, how to systemize things. And I guess all of that to ask, why is it that some people can figure it out in their teenage years and some people make it all the way to death and never figure out how to actually implement this to start making things happen in their life?
I think there's a couple of things to that. A is just our genetic makeup. So some people have a more of an architectural mind, more of an engineering type of a mind. That could be a mind that you have, for example. I know for sure my mind is like that because I'm always designing, architecting, engineering things, right? So I think some people just have the genetic makeup, how we grow up as well, the experiences that we've had. So I grew up in sciences, so it's very science-based, formula-based, system-based. And then it's interest, because some people have interest in creating some systems. Other people don't. Like, for example, my wife has no interest in creating systems whatsoever. Like, it's just not in her forte. Like, it's just so I think there's a number of factors that go uh, that lead to it. Just like anything else in life, it's a combination of our genetic makeup, experiences, and our interests, and just circumstances sometimes, right? And so that is one of the main reasons, and that's why we have this episode, is because hey, we're going to give you the formula. Here's the formula. Now, some people out there listening may say, I like the formula, but I still can't put it together. And that's okay. You don't have to. Maybe you have someone on your team do it. So that's the other thing to take a look at. This isn't for everybody. In fact, I encourage you not to be the person that creates systems all the time unless it's part of what you do for your work or interests or you're making money off it. I make money off creating systems. That's why I love it so much. Everything I do is about creating systems and I capitalize on that.
Well,
But I don't, sorry, go ahead.
uh, just to touch on what you said, most of my work is this. It's figuring out how do we create a sales funnel? Okay, how do we create a Google Ads? Okay, how do we create an upsell that makes sense? Okay, how do we formulate a sales page that works for this audience versus works for this audience? And it's creating systems, and it's reusing those systems over and over and over again and tweaking them for the different situations. But if I had to go in and figure this stuff out anew every single project, I would hate my life and I would hate my job. There's
Hmm.
no way I'd be a marketer. But this resonates with me so much because creating these systems and then using them over and over again and figuring out how to make the system fit each unique situation and knowing what situation calls for which type of system. um it just I I guess I can't see how people can go through life without utilizing this. And I get that some people are just like, hey, I don't want to do that. I just want to clock in, clock out, go home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed, wake up, clock in, clock out, and follow somebody else's system. I get it. But um, for our audience and for the guys that both of us work with, and even girls, I know girls that are very systematic too. Um, I don't know how you can be an effective leader or an effective author of your own destiny without utilizing this.
Yeah, and I think here's the difference. I think it's whether they create the systems themselves or whether they follow a system. And I think that's the difference because you don't necessarily have to create the system yourself, but you can follow the system. And that's in life, you have to follow a system to get results. And that's ultimately one of the most important factors. So I get what you're saying. That is the thing. So you should, if you're going to lose weight, it requires a system to follow. If you want to make more money, it requires a system to follow. So to be successful in whatever category you want to be successful in, it requires a system. Whether you make that system or not is a different story. And you don't have to. That's why you have advisors, right? That's why I work with some guys because they just don't know how to build a system and I help create the system for them, customize the system. That's why I, for example, have a trainer because I have a trainer that builds the formula for me in terms of the workout because he has the latest technology and knowledge and expertise in the research on that and has access to information that I don't.
Mm.
So he's best equipped to do that. So I take that advice. That's why people hire you because you build the marketing system. So if you're not going to build it yourself, hire other people to build it who have the expertise to do it or have built it before. That's another important aspect. When it comes to this, this is where it's fun. If you like to be creative, if you want to improve your own systems, that's where this formula comes in and you take a look at this. This is where problem solving comes in because a lot of people think, and this is for your own life, if you can take a look at these elements, for example, right? And you say, my life is not going the way I want it to go, or my business is not going the way I want it to go. You can take a look at one of these six elements and pinpoint where it's not going well, what's not working out well.
Mhm.
So maybe you don't want to design the system, but if you can break it down and say, this part of my life or this part of the system of this part of my life is not working, that's what I need to change, right? And I'll give you an example. Just so, the system of, let's just say, relationships or family. Someone may say, I'm married, I have beautiful kids, I'm just not feeling fulfilled, right? I have a wife, that's an element. I have kids. I just want to say that's an element, but it is an element of your life. I have kids, right? I have a son, a daughter, another son, whatever it is, that part of my life. But now I'm not fulfilled. Something's not right here. Let's take a look at the relationships within the system,
Mhm.
right? That's where you start to see the real challenges. If you want to see where the biggest problems come about, it's not necessarily the elements of the system. It's typically, not in all cases, but it's typically the relationship of the elements within the system. Because if you can change the relationship, you can change the system significantly. If you change the purpose, you can change the system significantly. And here's another example. Someone who is working out to look better, right, they have a different purpose, is gonna have a different level of motivation from someone who is working out because their life depends on it, because a doctor has told them that their diabetes will kill them in a couple of years unless they get their act together. Well, guess what? Right? That system may be the same, but the purpose is different. Now you can see the outputs are going to be a little bit different now because one person may be more motivated than the other. So it's a little bit of a scientific approach, But I encourage everybody to write this acronym down. I encourage everybody to go through this exercise and say, what is the purpose of the system? What are the elements? What are the relationships, right? What's the process? What's the output? What's the measurement? And this is the best thing you could do for finding a problem. Because if it's not going well, it's one of these six elements or more than one. And then you can just pinpoint and change things around. And that's where your life can be improved. And this is where things can actually get fun, Nathan. This is where I would say this is where I've been able to excel as a professional, as an advisor, as a human being for myself, and where the most value comes in for me helping other people. This is why I
So,
get hired.
oh, sorry. Um, so to be fair, I do have to admit certain things, certain systems in marketing, I learned from other marketers, other advertisers, and then I adopted them and learned how to make them work for my processes and my situations. Certain systems, like the way that I manage my money, I was horrible at managing my money, and I had to find somebody who had a system already pre-built that worked for me. And I've been using his system for about 2 years now, 3 years now, and it works very well. So I'm a very much, I like to make my own systems, but there's areas in my life where I admit that I'm weak, and I need somebody who's more intelligent in that area to kind of create a system, and then I can follow it and adapt it to my situation. So I guess the question is, how do you determine whether you should try and make your own system, or you should try and adopt someone else's system and implement it, or where you should just say, you know what, this is an area where I'm just going to let somebody else come in and show me what to do, and I'm just going to adopt their system completely. How do you, I guess, do you ever run into that situation where you need someone else's help creating the system, or are you always creating your own systems? What does that look like for you?
All the time. And I'm going to talk about my philosophy. So it's a really tricky question because we can get really bogged down into this. We could spend a lot of time creating our own system. So it really comes down to what is your ultimate goal, right? And goals in life, whether it's relationships, parenting, whatever it is, right? And then you can say, where do you spend most of your energy, or where do you want to spend most of your energy? And I'm a firm believer. Why recreate the wheel when you don't have to? That is my philosophy. And here's a philosophy that I've used that has allowed me to get to where I am today. I go out and I find the best of the best in that category, the best of the best. And if I can't afford the best of the best, or it doesn't fit my situation, for example, then second best, third best, whatever it is. But I always go out there and I find the best of the best, and I pay for their advice. Now, you may not be able, people out there may not be able to be in that situation, but there's a lot of free information. If you can't pay for their advice directly or the system directly, you can indirectly get it most chances just by going online and stuff.
Mhm.
But I pay for it. Here's why: because I openly say to them, this has worked out very well for me. And I say, I'm paying you. Do you mind if I use this, incorporate this into the work that I do? And then most of the time they say yes, because you're paying me and you're paying me top dollar. So I take that system and I incorporate a lot of it into the work that I do. So paying someone, I think, is important. I think learning from someone else is important because we only have a finite amount of time, energy, and skills to be able to develop our own systems. If you can take it from other people and then modify it to fit your life, that is the best thing that works. I have an awesome trainer, and I used to be a personal trainer at 17 years old, and I keep up to date with some of the stuff, but I'm nowhere near close to keeping up to date with the latest and the greatest of the research when it comes to physical workouts. So I said, okay, part of me had to let go of my ego and say, I'm not the best of the best in this. Crap, that feels crappy. And I can hire someone else. Okay, let me just do that, right? I'm gonna have to pay a little bit of money. That's okay. I had to make that choice. But I made the choice to try to be the best of the best in cognitive performance when it comes to neuroscience and business. Like, we have a research team, we partner up with universities. That's my focus and that's my energy. That's where I drive most of our systems. We pull systems in. So I had to let go of some things and focus on other things. So if that answers your question, is sometimes we have to let go of our ego. take a look at our resources, where our time is best spent. And I always say this, if you can rip it off from other people, but do it in a legit and ethical way, that's the best way to take a system.
Okay. Okay. So if somebody out there is listening and they're saying, you know what, I want to pay Purdeep to help me create some systems for myself, for my business, for my team, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is just to reach out. Email is the best, team@purdeepsangha.com. So again, once again, that's team@purdeepsangha.com. Feel free to email out. We are very personal. We like to touch base with you. I'll probably contact you myself, and we can go from there.
All right. And if people want to check out more episodes of the podcast, where's the best place to go?
Check out mailpodcast.com or youtubeformen.com.
All right, man. And until next time, we will catch you later.
Till next time.